Okay, yes. It started when I was the managing director or the general manager of the corporation. Basically, we looked at it from three main perspectives. We, as the service provider, were looked at. We were also looking at a kind of regulation to be put in place. And also that was to culminate in the enactment of a law, which was to transform the board, then Bauchi State Water Board, to a corporation, that is Bauchi State Urban Water and Sewerage Corporation. It was funded by, you said, under its Sustainable Urban Water and Sewerage Project, Sustainable Urban Water and Sewerage SWASA. That is how it is called. And Engineer Dennis was very much at the helm of affairs, although he was not the one directly being the team leader, but he was really moving the whole thing, as the case may be, with his headquarters in Kenya. There was serious engagement with key stakeholders, from the customers to the service providers, to the service provider, to the lead in the sector, that is the Ministry of Water Resources. And it culminated finally to the enactment of a law in April 2014, transforming Bauchi State Urban Water, Bauchi State Water Board to Bauchi State Urban Water and Sewerage Corporation. Basically, the idea is to have a corporation, which is a company owned by government, if I may say that, but operating as a public, as a corporate body. It was to be guided by the establishment of a board of directors, the appointment of a managing director, having a regulatory institution that will regulate the activities not only of the corporation but of the sector, and to move its performance through performance contract with the government of the day, and it's also to have some performance targets which it will be measured against. One other thing that is key was the establishment of a PCRC, Performance Contract Review Committee. Well, this is a committee to be domiciled in the Ministry of Water Resources, and it will now assess the corporation against the targets. Hello? Hello, there's a background noise. I don't know why it's
Go ahead,
coming
sir.
from.
Go ahead, sir. I've muted the person.
Okay. There was to be a performance contract agreement, PCA, with the government and the corporation, where the corporation is expected to meet some basic targets. And this PCRC, that is Performance Contract Review Committee, will, at a certain period of time, review those the performance of the corporation against the targets. Then it will advise government accordingly on what to do or what not to do. This could even lead to the sacking of the management or the board, as the case may be, if government was found to be fulfilling its own side of the contract as well. Now, basically, that is how it is. For the improvement of internal performance, we have the internal performance contracts, which is to be between the corporate headquarters and the component units of the corporation, which we call them area offices, which are to be established at the various local government headquarters. And this, as I said, is to move the performance of the corporation. Few things were identified as key: movement in revenue generation or the bill collection, and also the supply of water, which will be seen as the coverage in terms of area as well as the number of hours being supplied. These are a few of the things that I may mention. Now, we have had some successes, and we also have some setbacks, as the case may be. And we have reasons for all these things. The successes we may say is that everybody is aware that reform is ongoing. From the then political leadership coming down to the ministry and then to the water corporation. Then, of course, the staff are largely also aware that these were under a reform. We had to contend. Anyway, let me not bring the challenges now, but we were also successful in one aspect through the intervention of SWAS and the elevation of the status of Bauchi state. We were able to access, or we were one of the selected states to participate in the third national urban water and sewerage, third national urban water project. And reform was also part of the World Bank supported third national urban water sector reform project. Now that was a big success, and that culminated as well in the rehabilitation and expansion of the water supply system for Bauchi metropolis. Right now, we would, without fear of contradiction, say that we do have good supply of water. Under these, we have some reforms, and I will mention a few. We are able to establish to a good level of, with good level of confidence, our customer base. That one we're able to establish. Now, we have also commenced the production and distribution of bills for collection. In fact, we have achieved well over 92% of our bills distribution, though because of the logistics involved, we divided the town into two, so we have a 2-month cycle to be able to reach each and every customer that we have. And we have also put in place asset management system. We have put in place GIS system. We have put in place financial management system and few other things like that. These are some of the successes, but as a challenge, which I think I should come up with right away, we have not been able to move the collection as we would have wanted to, but it is fairly a little bit more than what we used to have, but we still have that challenge. Okay, please let us go back to the last page. No, the one before this, from introduction. Yes, I was like, from introduction, please. Yes. Now, the impact, so to say, is that, although that is an outcome, but we are looking at it now as an impact, is that we have good water supply within Bauchi metropolis, and we have also been able to convince the government to commence the rehabilitation of the water supply system in the second largest town in Bauchi, that is Azari. And they have started with the rededication of a power supply to the source, which is over a distance of 20 kilometers. And now we'll be able to now rehabilitate the system because it is borehole based. We have high yield boreholes that could supply up to 10 liters per second. And we have about 40 of them with all other infrastructure in place. So the success in Bauchi has impacted on the government that it saw the need to rehabilitate that of Azari. And this year, under the project, the World Bank project, we were able to get good quantity of submersible pumps. Apart from Bauchi, all other schemes in the towns are boreholes based. And we have also have alternative standby sources, that is the generators. So the government has agreed that in next year's budget, they will facilitate the rehabilitation of virtually all the water supply schemes because they're largely based on submersible pumps and of course another source of power supply, which is the generators. So this, we look at them as the successes. In other areas, we still have a lot of challenges. The challenge, the first one is that our inability to be able to collect as much as possible of water rates. This is still a very big challenge. And this, we have to look at it from the perspective of attitude. You have to put a lot of pressure. Unfortunately, we also have this challenge that is to be developing this activity. That is the policy of government. When we had reached the stage of getting more bank accounts opened and few other things like that, we were slammed with this TSA. And so we had to close all the bank accounts. And up to now, we have not been allowed to use other means of payments and payments platforms and other things like that. So unfortunately, we are finding it difficult for people to come down to the corporation and make payments. Whatever little that we're able to get, it's because of the activities of our revenue collectors who have to move from home to home, house to house, and have to visit a household many times before they get the little they could get. We hardly get any payment through these other options, apart from payment from institutions. So I would have loved to be kept on the first page. I think that's better. Now, these are those are some of the challenges with in relation to billing and collection. We also have this issue of why the reforms are not impacting fully. The serious turnover of those that matter in the reforms. For the past 10 years or so, we have been having change in government from one party to the other. And we have been having change in the personnel that matter to the reform from one government to the other. A situation whereby you have in the ministry who should oversee the reforms, the permanent secretary and the commissioner are entirely new persons. It's an issue. In a situation whereby the governor that we have had his political will is replaced is another big issue. And unfortunately, access to such big people is not something very easy as a civil servant or as the case may be. Now, this is a big challenge that has hindered the continuation of the reforms. Now, we also have this issue of staffing. In a situation whereby where sanctions are applied is different from where those offenses are committed is a big challenge, because those that will apply the sanctions may not even appreciate the gravity of the offense, and so they may not even be committed to applying the sanctions as appropriate. And that is the big issue with the civil service structure. Vicky Idoko-Pop is a witness to when we had started, even under SWASA, to start the implementation of this project. When it was misreported that everybody in the corporation will be sacked, and it's only those that will be paid by the World Bank, which is also a misunderstanding of the whole thing, that will be kept in the corporation. So I would say at initial we possibly have some challenge with sending out messages. And the people that do send out the message might not even necessarily have understood the reforms. The reforms were viewed as putting ourselves in a good position to be able to access the World Bank loan, which was not the case. Though it could be seen, that could be one of the considerations. But the powers that be looked at it that it was because we wanted to access World Bank loan, as the case may be. I think these are some of the key challenges which really hinder the effective implementation of the whole thing. Largely, the civil servants do not want this one because they see themselves as losing their jobs, even with the assurances that even in the law, with the assurances that nobody will be let off because of the reforms, as the case may be. Now, the future of the Waters Agency, it looks bright and it looks good as well. Unfortunately, it's the service provider that now has the institutional memory of all those things. Let me, without being immodest, say that having taken part in the reforms up to now, we are in a much better position to know what the direction of the reform should be. This might not necessarily be the case with the implementer, that is the Minister of Water Resources. Now, the good thing is that we have been taking them up to tell them or to inform them or to sensitize them about the need for the reforms. And we have been using this incentive that if the corporation is able to pay for its salaries, to pay for power supply and few other things, at least that will be to the betterment of the whole system. And that will be a burden off the head of the government. And in any case, when we talk of appropriate tariff, that does not mean we are going to make it inaccessible to the ordinary person. Both up to now is charging 500 naira for the domestic in the densely populated area, 750 naira in the well-established medium housing estates, and 1,000 in the GRA, that is the highbrow area of the state. Now, that was as at January 2009. That is 11 months after there has not been any review of this tariff. And when we are to review them, we are not going to say, okay, we are going to review them to 10,000 per individual. We are looking at just about 1,500 minimum. And for an average consumption of six cubic meter, that is 30 drums. You could calculate that one, 30 drums per month, and you are selling it. That is, you are talking of how much? 15 naira per drum, as the case may be. So it's still not expensive. And this one, we have been able to send it across. And I'm sure the government is considering all this for a review. We have put the corporation in a good position to be able to bill and collect, at least bill correctly and try its level best to collect. We have had also a lot of activity in terms of non-revenue water program. Though that one is just at the beginning, we have had the necessary equipment, we have established the structure on ground, and right now we are all out to contain most of the leakages, whether physical or commercial. Let me say that with the improvement in pressure and having not replaced all the pipes, some pipes have been without water for quite some time. Now with the improvement in water and pressure, we have had to contend with a lot of bursts here and there. But we have built the capacity, and we have also have the necessary resources to be able to tackle all these ones. So the position or the future of the corporation looks good, and we are going to go ahead and pursue it as such. I think I have said much. Questions may be able to reveal some of the other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Kida. Thank you, Guitar. Thank you for everything that you have said. You've said a lot. I'm sure you've covered a lot of the issues the other state water agencies are dealing with. Do we want to take questions now, or do we want to leave this till the end? I would suggest we take questions now while this is still fresh in our minds, or make comments. Can we see hands up?
Hi, Vicky. Unfortunately, I can't raise my hand, but I would like to. This is Jurbe.
Okay, Jurbe, hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yes.
So First and foremost, I want to appreciate VIPCG for this great initiative. It's been quite helpful bringing practitioners together. And also to appreciate Engineer Gital, who has taken his time to share their experiences here. So I think my question is, or rather a comment or a question, I don't know. Engineer Gital will need to tell us, because I could see, that the Bauchi Water Corporation is really moving in the right direction. Hello, I hope I'm being heard.
Yes, Titilola, that caused the disruption. She has quieted herself. Thank you, Titilola.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Engineer Gitala, thank you very much. You have been doing quite a lot in the Bauchi State Water Corporation, and you have highlighted, some of your successes as well as your challenges. And for me, I think one of the areas I would like to know a little bit about is that aspect that has to do with how you've been able to sustain this reform to this stage that you are doing, particularly the mechanism in place that has been able to ensure that these reforms are being sustained up to this level. Because you clearly mentioned that one of the key challenges is change in government. Of course, when there's change of government, there's always change of personalities, change of GMs, and some political office holder who might have been familiar with the reforms before. But for me, I think there is something so unique that you really need to project out, Engineer Gita, so that it will also help other GMs and practitioners, because I could see a lot happening in Bauchi, and then we need to really document this and use this as a learning point to other utilities. So that is just the comment, and maybe if you can respond to that, that would be very helpful. I know it's very complex, change in government, these are things that we cannot change. They are bound to happen. But how has it always been when such situations happen in Bauchi? And how has you been able to manage this situation to this level that the reforms are beginning to make impact in your state? Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is pertinent. Even me, I want to know also. So Engineer Guitar, over to you. Engineer Guitar, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm also surprised, particularly my own person, how I've been able to survive all this while. Because any new government that comes, it comes with its own ideas, it comes with its own intention and other things, whether positive or negative. But I think there is luck in it for me to have survived this long. That one is there. But the key thing is that we have been able to sensitize any new incoming government. I know there was a time when we were to have a change of government, we had these discussions with Engineer Dajan of blessed memory that we should look at how to, before the governor comes in on board, he was then a governor-elect. We take him out of the country and be able to read to him all the gospel of these reforms, as the case may be. That did not happen, but I took a cue from that, and I tried my level best to reach them out even before they come into government, or at least at the beginning, before their minds are spoiled, as the case may be. So if you like, it is largely the issue of engagement with them immediately they are on board. And it's also to make them understand that it's a reform, not a revolution. And therefore they are the ones at the driver's seat. And so they are the ones to drive it. In any case, that is just the reality. Whatever you want to do, If the governor says you are not going to do it, that's the end of it. We could see that we lost River State in the third National Urban Water Sector Reform Project because the governor was not willing to go with that. So I will say that it is the issue of engagement. And also through the engagement to tell them that the ultimate aim of this reform project is first, improve the quality of supply. Second, to reduce dependence, or if possible, to be able to clearly get away from government in requesting anything to do with the operations and maintenance. And these are good incentives. So let me say that it is the issue of engagement with the stakeholders. Yes, thank you.
All right. We had two people who had their hands up. Are they still up there? Can you manage that?
Hello, good morning, all.
Yes.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. We're
Yeah,
here.
my name is Tomi Onofowoko. I want to say, what do I say? Thank you to the GM for the presentation. My comments are this: 10 years is a long line in the life of any organization. And when we're talking reforms, it's all about changing the norms and following international best practices towards ensuring that, yes, these utilities can perform its primary objective of getting water to people in a sustainable manner with little dependence on, let me say, on government in this case. So I would like to know, yes, because you gave us an overview of what you are. I would have loved to have performance data in terms of what was the population being served before commencement of the reform, how did you graduate over time? What challenges were along the line? In terms of revenue to the corporation, what was the earnings like? And where are you now in terms of operation and maintenance?
Uh-oh, lost him.
It's off.
Okay. He stopped. But we know that we have that data somewhere, right? But I don't think. Okay, we're losing people. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me. Basically, we know that Engineer Guitar has a lot of this data, but this forum would not be. We need more time to expose that data, but you can actually reach out to him privately to see if he can share that information. So we're going to go on to the next person that is raising their hands. Thank you, Engineer Thomas. Well, who's coming next? We have three people. Unmute yourself and then start speaking.
Hello, this is Mark Ademi.
Oga Mark.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky, for being tenacious about this and bringing the real actors. Engineer Gita, thanks for your presentation. I missed most of it, but because I'm part of your system, I can imagine what you would have said. I've been a friend of yours for quite a long time. And incidentally, I was in Bauchi to do the customer enumeration, and we picked up almost 90,000 properties in Bauchi metropolis. I am conversant with institutional issues and a lot of organizational development you've done over time, working with SWAs, working under the World Bank, and all the systems you've put in place. I just want to ask that, is it possible to begin to look at business model whereby you can take advantage of that massive market you have that is starting from Bauchi Metropolis. And because of your legal status, will the government allow you to go and look for funds to try out some of those similarly lucrative communities within the Bauchi Metropolis and carve them out as service SDAs, like service development area, so that you can begin to make some money from obvious business cases within the Bauchi Metropolis? Will the government allow you to go to bank, raise money, and do business, because there's business in Bauchi Metropolis? Thank you.
Okay. One more person after Mark, and then we got to go to the next presenter because we've done 1 hour. Okay. Engineer Guitar, you can answer Mark.
Okay, I thought you were to ask. Anyway, let me respond to Mark. Good morning, Mark. I'm glad you have acknowledged that we have been able to identify a big market for Bauchi. We have been, as he said, we have about 90,000 potential and existing customers, but already we only captured.
I don't know if it's only me. I've lost a guitar.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear him.
Okay, you can hear me, isn't it?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So it's, we have about 90,000, but our existing customers, which we have captured as already existing, is about 35, which means we have that wide gap. I wouldn't be able to say government will allow that, but we have muted the idea to government to allow us look for funds so that we can demarcate the metropolis and try to see areas that are lucrative enough, as Mark said, and be able to charge them appropriate tariff in those areas, and then probably be able to engage in PPP, kind of, where, as you all know, we now say, okay, you have this area from analysis, you are going to generate this, you should turn it, and then so on and so forth. So this is something that
we can hear you.
Hello?
Go ahead. It's Oga Emeka that we can hear. We're trying to get him to mute. Oga Emeka, can we get you to mute? He has. Okay. Engineer Guitar.
So, I am not really sure whether that is something government should look at, but I think it is something the corporation should, within its limited resources, try to initiate something in that direction. And then when it is seen to be viable, it's possible, possibly anybody that we have that PP with, or company that we are going to have that PPP with, will be glad to go in even at some disadvantage to him. So we have muted it to government, but we are yet to get back their response on that. But as I said, our line of action is to start it small and then grow. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Can we go on to the next presenter for now so that we can have all the 3 presentations, and then we can then bring the whole thing back in the room for discussion for time. Yeah. Please, so keep your questions. We'll get back to it at the end. We were going to take Engineer Leo. Engineer Leo, can you confirm that you can start? Engineer Leo is from Abia State.
Engineer Leo is muted. He needs to unmute himself.
Yes. If you can hear us, can you unmute yourself, sir? Mark, do you know if he has unmuted himself?
Yes, he
has. He has unmuted.
Good. Engineer Leo, we're ready. We're waiting for you now. Huh, but we still cannot hear him. Engineer Leo, we cannot hear you. Or he hasn't even started talking. Okay.
Can we, are you calling Ekiti?
When we were calling Engineer Leo, since he hasn't started yet, can you start Engineer Agbeo
Okay.
from Ekiti? Yes, and then we'll go back to Engineer Leo.
Okay, okay. The Vicky Dokopo, we want to appreciate you. And as the GM of the State Water Corporation, I'm not the only one around at this time. With me,
Okay, Mark, you have your hand raised. What's going on? Mark?
I'm sorry, I left it there, dropped it.
Okay. All right. Engineer Agbeo, can you hear us? We lost you. We lost her.
Okay.
She's not-
Hello,
Oh,
yes.
there you are. Yes.
yes,
You were saying that you have other people with you.
yes. I have the MD with me, what Mr. Wale Afolabi. I have some of our key players in the sector in the office. We have the MIE officer here. We have the surveillance team, leader of the surveillance team. We have the commercial director with me, Engineer Ajay. And we have the retired, one of us are retired, is still with us, but not tired, Engineer Daramola. He joined in towards the end of the period, and he's so much interested in the water sector. You know, we are a big family, and we don't leave ourselves or even the experience. And we have our junior officers also coming on. We have the Engineer Latilu is also with us.
Okay, we have lost her again. Be patient. Engineer Agbero, we lost you. Okay.
So the
Yep.
connection is just fluctuating. So you will
Yes.
allow us or you permit us.
Okay.
So that's the way of production. I am Engineer Mrs. Olabisi Agbeyo, the outgoing General Manager of the Ekiti State Water Corporation, who has been on board for over 7 years now as General Manager. But I decided not to not to compete or contest for the position of MD because of my years of service. That's where I'm going out. So, but I think I also need to share my experience on the reform in the water sector in the country. You want to say something?
No, we're listening.
Okay. So, you know, you have different stakeholders when it comes to issue of reform in any agency. You have the big organs, the government.
We lost her again.
Okay, we are back. It's just fluctuating.
Yes.
We have different people participating, relevant stakeholders. We have the government, we have the staff, we have the communities, we have the supervising ministry, and the rest of them. But key under the reform that we know that we have actually executed is that we actually into the real corporatization of the agency. Though the agency bears the name Water Corporation, but not really computerized as is expected. So we're in the process, the government is in the process of registering the agency so as it will be a full-fledged limited liability company as time goes on. We also did some consultancy work here, and we have ready documents that we must use to implement and drive the reform and the transition. We have the re-engineering, reorganization, and the development report generated by a consultant for us. And this is what the transition committee put in place by the government is expected to use to drive the transition and the reform that is ongoing in the sector. We have the supervising ministry also review the policy and the law in line with our new outlook as a government utility, government business outfit. But what I discovered is that the one that is expected to drive this reform from the ministry, who is the political head, the commissioner, is not really understanding what corporatization is all about. The mindset of some of them that I can sense is that they don't know the difference between privatization, commercialization, and corporatization. Yeah, the corporatization is the problem they are having because they believe when you corporatize, then you unbundle the corporation. When you unbundle the corporation, then you bring in different private people, companies to own different area offices to be managed by them instead of that all the staff have been trained for the reform to actually implement and showcase their abilities. So that's what I think is also playing out in Ekiti. The one that's supposed to be the real champion is not understanding this aspect of corporatization. I think his own focus and the way he's driving it is as if he's driving privatization. That's one thing. Then under the reform, what we actually did was that a board was put in place for us under the reform. The policy was reviewed, and then to actually accommodate all the procedures and all the requirements to meet up as a limited liability company. As I said, the transition committee has been put in place by the government to drive the reform and the transition. And the government has to migrate the board to integrate the board with the transition committee so that board will not be in a place and transition committee will also be working as a different entity. So the board has been migrated to be involved in the transition committee. So the board is part of the transition committee now in the state. The board is not standing, they are not standing alone for now. I think what I've been told is when they finish the transition and the new utility is starting off well, then the board may now be returned to their appropriate positions. But for now, they are part of the transition committee in the place. Then another thing we have also succeeded in the state is that the MD, they have recruited the MD, and the MD resumed in September so that I can understudy the GM and the activities of the corporation, so that by the time the GM is exiting, it will be easier for him to continue the work. So he has been on since September. And what are also some of the other things we have also achieved under reform. I think that's all we have. The only thing outstanding under reform is that the document generated by the consultant that we're supposed to allow the consultant to drive, so that for the first 1 or 2 years to drive what he has put in place could have made it easier for us, the transition. Part of the transition committee, they have promised the government that they can drive, and it's slowing down process of transition the way I see it. Because ordinarily within the next few years, Ekiti State will have been on its good footing. Under the project, we also try, because of the reform, that we should also put in place a regulatory agency. That we have also achieved, and the state is having a functional regulatory agency now that we also, through the support of the government, pass, and they are working very well, supporting us too. So, but the key challenges now is that, you know, we started very well. In the course of implementing the project, we requested that the financier, the World Bank, to allow us to restructure the project so that we could procure some inputs, chemical and diesel, so that we'll be able to work and test with that and then see how we're faring. And they allowed all the states, and it was the chemical we bought under the project that we used throughout last year, that's 2020, even till date. And I can assume that was the only thing that actually convinced the government and the masses that Water Corporation has a very bright future because of our activities and what we were able to deliver. The people were encouraged because they saw a new Water Corporation coming on board, very effective, and was delivering service. But the unfortunate aspect of it is that all those people that we have sensitized, they are seeing service, they are receiving service, they are encouraged. People are coming for connection. In fact, we have over 9,000 metered premises in Ekiti now, most especially in Ado and the new project area. We have over 9,000 metered premises, and we put prepaid meter so that when your water cuts off, you can also go back to vent. We don't want issue of sending evil bills. So the ones already, the flat rate people that we have about, in the whole state, about 4,000 plus of them, we are also trying to put them on meter so that we will need to begin to go to any premises to distribute bill, either electronically or physically. What we intend doing is that once you have the prepaid meter, once your change your needs finishes, you can also revert back to the corporation to recoup, and then you vend. We call it vending. Once you vend, you can continue to have your service. That's our idea, and that's our intention, and that's what we actually did. But the most unfortunate aspect of it is that the document that was generated by that company for the consultant to drive the reform indicated initial capital required by that organization, that utility, to take off. Because it is easier to say, we are giving ideas, you should do this, go to areas of your strength, that's where you should send water. What you will use in sending water to that area of your strength? At least water will not fly to that place. It will still go through the normal routes to that place. So if you don't have enough production to even get to the area of your strength, how do you have the revenue? So the initial capital is so important. But what we discover in the state is that most agencies, that they go on initial capital something, and the government promised them, we will give you 200 million, we will give you this, and they agree. We discovered that most of them, in fact, all of them, nobody was paid fully. They were being paid in percentages that will not actually make them to function well. So the fear is there that if you go ahead to insist that they should give you a chunk of that money, they will agree with you on paper. But when it comes to implementation, you cannot get 80% of that promise. So where are we? So these are the things, part of the problem we are facing. And now, even for the input that we got under the project is being exhausted. We up till now, we have succeeded. The MD is there to testify. Before coming on board, we have been on the issue of the input. Up till now, we have not succeeded. So even the customers that we have sensitized, they allowed us, they are happy, they are set, they are working with us, they are encouraged by our service, and they are now discouraged that look at, you just showcase these few months and now you are going back. So the initial capital is the problem of every utility now, because even when you agree, go to area of your strength, after all, you will pump to the area of strength. When you don't pump to the area of strength, they will not be happy to pay. So these are some of on the other achievements that I forgot to mention under the reform, we had an arrangement with Zambians. That's work operator partnership. So to see a good utility, well-performing utility to mentor us. And we did. And we got some documents ready. Performance Improvement Plan 1 and 2, they are ready. Also get that operating procedure document ready. The consultant that worked with us also provided us with plan, investment plan, strategic plan. All those things they are in place. But all those things, even when documents are in place, you need to actually carry out the assignment in the document. So I think what is key to any utility is adequate funding, not just funding, adequate funding. So we have a little, we also have a little problem. The tariff document generated for us by a consultant was supposed to have been implemented 2019. We didn't implement until last year. And even by now, with the fluctuation and price change, you find that that tariff will not work again. So even when we put that tariff, with the number of customers, we are not able to meet up. Another key issue affecting our utilities in Nigeria is this electricity supply, erratic power supply. We have a dedicated line under the project. Even the dedicated line that was put in place to assist us for error, the distribution company is not actually allowing it now. This is our experience. So I had to go back to Mr. Governor, who promised to go on IPP for me. But even where is the fund for him? Our governor is friendly, is reform champion, is ready, but the problem is funding. So these are some of the problems we have from Ekiti. Concerning billing collection, we have application-based billing system in place that we are using, and it's functioning well. But the fact remains that whatever billing, once the supply is faulty, once the supply is inadequate, your billing will be inadequate, your collection will be very inadequate. So these are but the staff are ready. They have been trained, they are ready. We have the support of the union, though we have inadequate staffing in terms of number, because we still don't have enough staff to actually carry out most of these assignments. And every effort to get the support of the government to even go ahead to recruit is not used. But we don't really need support of government in terms of staffing if the corporation is on its good footing and is generating enough. The corporation can decide monthly it will be recruiting so number of staff. But whereby you don't have the chunk of money to actually buy the inputs, then it will look as if they are not performing, they are not coming up. For any utility to come up, these are the serious issues we have in Ekiti. But for the future of the SWA, I see bright future for the SWA. We only need the governors now to know what corporatization is all about. Not somebody, not a commissioner telling them story. We also need them to know and understand the meaning of corporatization and what it entails, what is required for the corporatization to be successful. We need them to understand so that some of them that we have there, that we continue to tell you that are willing, because we have the political will in Ekiti. If he knows what corporatization is actually, if he's not having the fund, he will tell you, I don't have this fund. But what he has, he can also share with you that this is the level I can go with you. But whereby you have somebody telling you stories leading to privatization, and some of us also telling you stories about corporatization, you know, the man is in between. He gets confused. So this is the way I am. See, this is what I perceive. And this is where I said they still need to engage directly governors, not with their commissioners, governors all alone. Tell them the meaning of corporatization, tell them what operates internationally, the best global practices, and tell them the chunk of money they will need, they will actually prepare for it. So these are some of the challenges I think we have in the case. But for us, with the projects we have actually implemented, if we have with the reform in place, the level we are in the reform, if we have adequate funding in terms of input supply, I think Ekiti will be a better place, and the future will be very bright, because the way we are driving it, we have a future that by social time we have MIE people in place that are also monitoring how the organization is faring. We have surveillance that go out aside the commercial to monitor what is going on in town. How can we mitigate against some of these challenges? They will suggest to the MD. We have all those platforms in place, all those people in place. But when you have all those people and you don't have supply, you don't have regular supply, then it's as if you are doing nothing. For the state capital now, as we are talking with you, we are trying to manage our ration. Ordinarily, we're supposed to pump for about 16-20 hours. Each day now, we pump 8 hours. Further, even where because of inadequate quantum of inputs. So these are the challenges we have. But for the future of SWA, we have a bright future if we have reasonable money as the takeoff. Even the bank, are also lucky because of the performance in the third state has been considered for Sunwash project again. And the government is also ready with the Sunwash that any gap we have, any gap the utility is having, that part of the fund of the Sunwash can be used to actually fill those gaps, to meet up those gaps. But it's not filling gaps alone that is required in the agency. We need the correct funding for it can be take off, and it can be a chunk at once, it can be split, it can be on monthly basis, but it must be regular for regular supply. So that when you have regular inputs come, a lot of sensitization, radio jingles, and so they are ready. They even allowed us to meet them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if your new MD could chip in a little bit. Oga Falabi, are you there?
He's there, he's there. He's also going to come up and say something.
Yes, can he come up and say something?
Good afternoon, the Pope herself.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yeah, by and large, the reform agenda in the urban sector or urban water agency in the states, from the just concluded third urban national water project has been successful, and now we have 2 brand new schemes in place. A third one is coming in from the support from the EU, water supply and WSFR. So we have these 3 schemes. Now we need to use these schemes to deliver our services to the people in the state. And for us to be able to do that successfully is for us to have chemical and to have physical plant. We are for reform, we are for autonomy of the sector, and we are saying that government should support us from the beginning, maybe for 1 year, support us to a level that we'll be able to run ourselves. So when we're able to run, yes, please. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, what we are saying is that government should support us for a time being, to enable us to start at work and run. After we will be able to generate enough revenue for us to start on our own. Why government now start projects? For now, government has to be involved in the operating costs. Without having our operating costs, it will be very difficult for us to move. So that is where we are. If we are able to get that, we have a very crop of dedicated and loyal staff that will be able to drive the system. And we do know, like the GM said, the future of the State Water Agency is very bright, but we need government support. We need donor support. We need people like you to also support us, Vicky Pidokopo, and some other people. So that will help us to be able to implement and actualize the vision of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Do we have questions? We are trying to track down Engineer Leo. Engineer Leo, if you're here, put up your hand so that we'll know that you're here. I can't find him. I don't know. I think he got frustrated with the connections. Okay. So do we have questions for Ekiti? I don't know who's Galaxy 820. So
yeah, that's you.
Oh, no wonder I couldn't find you. You were Galaxy 820.
Yeah, please, can you unmute me? I can hear you, but you can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Since I've been trying to talk.
Can you hear us? Because I can hear you. Everybody can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Now we lost you again, but we can hear you. He's not unmuted, but he keeps going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can I go on?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I want to align myself with my 2 colleagues. I will just pick some points because reform are the same thing ongoing in the state water agencies. I don't need to repeat what they have said, but I must say at this point that we're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel through the aid of the 3rd National Urban Water Sector Reform Project, which we enjoy through the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, and then the USAID e-wash project ongoing in our state now. We've never heard any donor support project before in the states aside these 2. But these 2 has really brought us to a point. and we are beginning now to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Before now, truthfully, we were at zero level. A situation where we had 57 existing water schemes, all was moribund. But today I will tell you that we have about 5 good treatment plants in Abia.
Oh, wow.
USAID is doing one in a area pumping station that will cover 5 local governments. It's a huge one. And they are going to do another one at Obakala in Umuahia. Federal Ministry of Water Resources did one at Opeme and is doing another one at Ohofia. Yeah, the palliative at Umuahia urban water scheme, so we're good to go. But we have challenges. Going through all these reform pattern, remember I said what is happening in every state is the same style. But I realize that every state has its own peculiarity. Yes, how do I mean? What is obtainable in Abia may not be obtainable in Ekiti. So, but the USAID truthfully has done well in Abia. One key thing they've done is to bring the mindset of the critical stakeholders back to the water sector.
Okay.
Before now, the stakeholders did not bother about the water sector in Abia. We were going down every other day. But this singular project has brought the mindset of both the governor, the critical stakeholders, the commissioners. Everybody knows where we're heading to now. Within this period in question, we didn't have a water policy. We didn't have a good water law. We had an edit. But today, I must tell you, we have a robust water policy. We have a solid water law in Abia. This will help us open our arms to the sector for possibly private investors to come in, because you know that water is very expensive. I mean, drinkable water, as in the amount used in bringing it to be drinkable. So no, there is an external aid. So that's why with this law, the policy, and now we have investment master plan. That one was given to us by the 3rd National Urban Water Sector Reform Project. We have trainings and retraining for our staff. Before now, we didn't have a single engineer in the water sector in Abia. But I must tell you, within this period in question, we have employed 15 engineers. Both the 3rd National Urban Water Sector Reform and the USAID e-wash project train the upgrade on the reforms. So what I'm trying to say is we have upgraded, but there are 2 key things we must really learn from this. You have brought us up to a point. It is not peculiar to Abia. Now that USAID project chose 6 participating states continue wherever they are going to stop, so that we won't crash back to status quo. How do I mean? We know that the state should aid, But as I've said, it takes absolute money for the reform to happen in a particular state. It takes time and great advocacy for you to return the mindset of the public the government and the critical stakeholders. So we need to continue. Yes, we joined the reform in 2015, but what we are seeing today, we are going to be on top soon. USAID and the Third National Urban Sector Reform Project did well in Abia. So we thank them so much, and we want more of that to be able to stabilize.
Okay. Okay. I think we lost him. Are you still there? Vera, did we lose Engineer Leo?
Yes, ma'am. I think network tripped out or something. We can't hear him well.
Okay, there's 820S that raised his hands up. Can you allow him to speak?
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Okay, AS20, talk away. Okay, he's putting up his hands and then he disappears. Let me see, there's a text. Nope. Okay. At this point, can everybody hear me? Okay, somebody came in. Maybe that's Engineer Leo again.
Hear me?
Yes, we lost you for a minute.
Yeah. Please, hello?
Yes.
There are two key things I want to point out.
Okay.
In this reform, truthfully, strictly, it went well. But there are lessons we must look into.
Okay.
In the area of contracting jobs, through either palliative or what, the state utilities should be involved, because the state utilities should be the direct beneficiaries of that project at the end of the day. And to a large extent, we should all try to scale down, for instance, on contracts, on rehabilitation, we should scale down on consultants to contractor, because these two things delays a particular project, and at the end of the day may not really come out the way because it's somebody we give the BEME, another person we implement. So we've seen that these things are bringing up problems and issues in terms of implementation of that particular project. This is a key problem. Maybe one contractor should take, for instance, if we're taking Umuahia Regional Water Scheme now, once the design is done in conjunction with the utility and other experts, a contractor should be choosing. There is no need bringing a contractor and a consultant to supervise the contractor. This
is West. It's not just peculiar to Abia State. Hello, are you with me?
Yes, it's Jube that is causing wahala. Jube, we can hear you.
Yeah, what we are saying is we are making our own input. We are not trying to discourage consultants, but what we are saying is this is practical thing that we have envisaged. In the field. Do you get me?
Yes.
So we are not trying to discourage consultancy. What we are saying in rehabilitation, if the utility is engaged with a contractor to make a design, after the design and payment from various people that may quote for that job, and it is approved, there is no need bringing another consultant to supervise the contractor.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean? Hello?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but overall, we have hope in Nigeria. We have hope in Abia. We are beginning to see the light of the day. If the present administration in governments cut across the 36 states, if they all encourage funding, what we are facing now in the 36 state water agencies are funding. You can see most good projects developed by donor. The state cannot run it. It's not peculiar to one state. So we need encouragement from various state governments to encourage the water agencies. Remember, what reform are very difficult to come by, but we need time. For instance, we've just signed a performance contract with my state now for 4 years. And I told them the state must play their own part and we will do our own. You must give us a takeoff grant. So we are waiting for them to give us the takeoff grant so that we will now start practicing what we have learned in this reform, which is the only way to go. Because before now, we took a statistics of why the 57 existing water schemes went moribund. We found out that it was due to this bureaucratic bottleneck in the governance. And just for instance, some schemes went down just because we can't procure batteries directly. You write letters through the head. Before approval and release will come 6 months. Another 6 months for you to secure it, vandalizations have entered. So if now we are autonomous, now we are corporatized, if we will play by the rule, because this corporatization thing went through the state's legislative system, they approved it, questions were asked, public hearing was held, so it is now a legal instrument, and the executive approved it and consented to it. So we should strictly adhere to the legal instrument and the policy. That is the only way to go in Nigeria, truthfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Leo. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the 3 GMs and MDs that have spoken, 3.5 since Ekiti had 2 people. We have heard a lot. What my view of what I heard is we have issues with understanding what the soft side of the reforms. We understand the hard side, which is the infrastructural development. And so a lot of the infrastructural rehabilitations are being done, and that seems to not be so much of a problem as when we are getting to the institutional level stuff. Understanding, for example, what is the role of the water law, and what should be in it, especially in regards to corporatization and autonomy. And not understanding it to that level then is hampering the implementation of it all. There's also issues which we all spoke about, getting our governors to be totally on board and hoping that they understand what the corporatization means and what the autonomy actually also means. What has been positive that I heard is the infrastructural rehabilitations that have been completed, and states that have now started taking steps to begin to provide access and service to customers. And I like that we were talking about money. The receipts are coming in, even though there's still issues of cost coverage. Ideally, our receipts will get to the point where we are able to cover our costs, at least cover our operations costs. A hindrance that we kept hearing was about the take of money from the government that will allow us, once we have been given autonomy and been given, now we are corporatized. We need money, the take of money, to be able to start becoming this new organization that is an asset of the government. And a lot of the government, I remember when we did the organization development work in Ekiti, that was clearly an amount of money that the government was supposed to put forward, give to the corporation, so the corporation can start using that to cover its operations costs, and then give it a certain number of years from when they then gradually transition into full autonomy. And I think Ekiti is still not getting that money clearly. Also, I don't know, I heard from the grapevine that the government released some money to Ekiti. So I don't know where that stands. But if the money that is being given is not targeted towards operations within the transition period, then you can't expect the organization to transition. We still have issues with staffing. I heard Bauchi talk about, asking for the government's permission to get money from the banks. Again, if you have a corporatized entity, properly corporatized entity is a corporate organization that is owned by the government. It is not the government agency. So if the government understands what it means to have a corporatized agency, and there's a proper board in place, then you should be able to source for funding. Straddling the fence or straddling the two identities of government agency and a corporatized agency can cause a lot of havoc in terms of what should we go to the government for and what should we not go to the government for. So I heard that from Bauchi also. And I know that the key area that we have always dealt with is the issue of staff. Where do our staff stand once we have corporatized? Well, if you are a corporate entity and you have staff, they are your staff, not government staff. And so, like Bauchi said, issues of managing your staff, rewarding and discipline cannot be left at the hands of government anymore if they are calling you a corporate entity and you are backed by a law that says you are a corporate entity. Engineer Leo did speak strongly about implementing the law that has been passed. This will solve the problem for many of the corporatized entities that we have. It's not only in Abia, it's also in Bauchi, in Ekiti, and all places. That is the issue where we're handed the water law that says you have autonomy and you are corporatized. Now you can go and become the entity that you can be And then at the same time, we're held back as a government agency and not being allowed free hand to work. The role of the performance-based contract and the regulatory the role of the performance-based contract and the regulatory agency in all of this is to help the government hands off so that the corporate entity now can be facing the regulatory agency and then working to meet its own part of the performance contract. If that is happening, then the government can back off. And then, so whatever amount of money the government puts into the corporation now becomes part of the government's investment in the corporation. It is a part that for the accountants in the room, there is, your balance sheet has two sides. There is the share capital, the owner's share capital on one side, and then there is the assets that you have on the other side. So when money comes in from the government, it's recorded as the owner's capital that came in and then recorded against your cash balances in the bank. So again, is understanding what transitioning into a proper corporation is. And yes, Ekiti spoke about the confusion between commercialization and corporatization. It is not only in Ekiti, it's everywhere else. And it's even part of the fears of staff, that when you are corporatizing, the fear that they are now being handed to private organizations that are going to take away their jobs and all of that. And then if you have people in your structure, in your political structure that have their own interests, we think that corporatization is commercialized. I mean, corporatization is privatization, and it's not. A corporate entity is an asset of the government. It's still owned by the government. So when we say corporatization, we mean that the corporation is still the property of the government. And all assets that belong to the water board should be transferred into the hands of the new corporation and recorded as the government's investment in this new corporation. If that is the case, during implementation, entities cannot just take the assets and then tear them up. So the first step really is for the government to hand over your assets to the new corporation. One of the things that I have seen also has been situations where we say we are corporatizing, and just because we have water law, we think we are actually a corporate entity. In Nigeria, to be a corporate entity, you have to be registered with CAC. We know this, right? So there is an incorporation document that says the government is incorporating this entity. So that is one part that we never actually deal with. Just because the government has a law that says the State Water Agency should be corporatized doesn't make it corporatized until you have actually incorporated and you have become an asset of the government. You become a corporation that is owned by the government. Before you can be a corporation that is owned by the government, you have to be a corporation first. So we have to be mindful in terms of when we say we're corporatizing, it means we become a corporation first. Then all the assets that the water board has is given to the corporation as government investment, plus the extra money for this transition period. And then, so it's still an entity that is an asset of the government. It is not a private entity. Until that happens, and government has handed over your assets, you can't start tearing apart the new corporation. So again, is being able to, like Engineer Leo said, if there is a law, let us implement the law to the fullest. And once we implement the law to the fullest, everything starts falling in place. So on that note, I am going to throw the floor open for comments. Can we, if you're going to talk, please unmute yourself, and then questions, comments, and all of that can start coming in.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
This is Mark again.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to encourage our colleagues, our guys in the utilities. Because, of course, we always have this issue of how do we get enough support from government, and all that. And I can also see these tendencies that we feel that support will always come from development partners, and all that, which will still come by God's grace. But I think it's time for us to also challenge ourselves and just look inwards, zero our mind and say, okay, if this is my private business and I don't have support from outside, but I have a functional skill, and God's so good, I have a government that is still paying salaries of my workers. Do we allow these facilities to lie fallow, and yet people are not getting water and they need water? What can we do internally? And that was why I asked the question I asked Engineer Jita, that why can't the utilities walk to a bank and say, I have a treatment plant that can serve 15,000 customers. The pipes are laid like the meters are there, but I need 100 million to buy chemical and service people. I would pay back. This is my business plan. We need to begin to look at these business options to survive. Otherwise, if we continue to look at government, when the government is broke, we are broke. When the development partner is not forthcoming, we are idle. So I think we can challenge ourselves in this line, since we know that we are in business and we know that we have the capacity to generate revenue, and we still have some support coming from government. That's, I think we can challenge ourselves along these lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, who next?
Yes, can I come in, please?
Yes, sir.
I think I really like the concept Mr. Mark Adeyemi is promoting. But I think we have to base it on the premise that the efficiency and effectiveness of the corporation, particularly with regards to revenue collection, is there. And this is a factor that is even beyond the corporation. I'm sure when you group these corporations into their peers, you probably will not compare Lagos and Bauchi because they are of different scale and other things like that. Now, we need to improve our internal efficiencies, as I said, and it's only when that one is there that the banks could see that you are a profitable venture and be able to give you the loan. Of course, you may have to contend with the extant laws regarding the taking of loan by a corporation, because government will have to definitely guarantee it. So do we look at how to improve our capacities in discharging our responsibilities, particularly in our collections? When that one is there, let us say, for example, Bauchi, now we have the water. Do we have the capacity to collect all the revenues that will accrue to Bauchi? As I'm talking to you, we are not collecting up to 30%. So we have to start from there, actually. That's what I am trying to point out. How do we improve our efficiencies in these collections? We could have all that it takes to collect, but on a larger scale, the Nigerian attitude of not paying for for services is still there. We could look at even NEPA, or what we call them discos now. Most of them, they do not collect up to 50% of the revenue they are supposed to collect. And talk less of the water corporations which are locally based. You could be abused. What I mean, you could be seen as some institutions that you don't have the biting teeth. And still, we have this issue that the principals do not really believe. Let me give you an example. When I took the governor around the facilities, and a journalist threw a question to me that they learned that we are going to review the tariff up and other things like that. The governor immediately collected the mic and said, "This is not his question. We can even give them free water." So these are things that we. So the banks will have to actually take the risk assessment and see that, yes, this is a viable venture for us to give this loan. Thank you.
Well,
can I come in, Vicky?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my colleague.
We can hear
in the water supply sector of Nigeria, Managing Director of Kaduna State Water Corporation. I heard my colleagues have been able to discuss their reform, but now I think I've lost the opportunity. It's now we are in the comment section, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But we are what we all need to know.
My own comment.
Hang on, sir. We are recording this session, and at the end of it all, we are going to email you or send you a text where you can go and listen to the discussions again, or have your people listen to it if you need to. So those.
Yeah, I have joined for quite a little time now. I have had the Oshun Abia presentation was giving an update. Can I give update on Kaduna, or I should just comment?
You can give update and you can comment.
Thank you. And the Kaduna Water Corporation started as in the 1920s when the British colonial government had base in northern Nigeria in Kaduna after they left Lokoja. So we're about a century old now. Give you an idea about some aspect of our infrastructure. The Kaduna South Water Treatment Plant was established in 1929. That was 9 years after. And then we had the intervention in 1974, as well as in 1987, 34 years ago. And we have recently concluded on an ultra-modern 150 million liters capacity new water treatment plant in Zaria. Capacity is 530 million liters per day, 50%. And the capacity utilization are defined by 1, the age of the water treatment plant, because they depreciate with time. 2, by availability of power, energy, either through public supply or through 3, and when this government came in 2015, it also edged up the reform, relating the Kaduna State Water Supply, Sanitation, and Hygiene Policy 2015, and they enacted a composite law called the law to provide for the regulation of water supply, sanitation, and hygiene services.
I'm not getting him. Is he on?
Yeah, he's on, but his connection is not very good and is going in and out. Oga Mekudi, can you hear us?
Sorry, the network fluctuated. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Yeah, we didn't hear you for 2 minutes straight.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, the network
Fluctuated. What was the last point you had from me?
Okay, great. Yeah, sure, fine, thank you.
What was the last point you had from
Yeah,
me?
I know.
Hello, Vicky.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
I
where
can
is
hear
the start?
someone else talking, and I'm trying to quieten this.
Yeah.
What was the last point you had from me?
But when the last government came in 2000.
Okay. So I was saying under the IWRIM, water resource management have three social equity and economic viability, economic efficiency, social equity, and environmental sustainability. So people are guided by this. A water utility is going to have a dual character. Water is also a human right. But that right comes with a cost. So that gives you an idea that under the social equity paradigm, you are not to leave anyone behind. The services should be inclusive. While at the same time, you want to render the service as economically as possible. So from 2019, when I became MD, our cost recovery of the OMR, that is recurrent expenditure, excluding the depreciation of the fixed asset, we are able to recover 45% in 2019. And in 2020, due to the COVID lockdown, our performance declined by 10%. But this year, we have recovered our collection the pre-COVID period. This year is about 60% of our energy consumption, water treatment chemicals, OMR, and staff salary. The order of our governor is that we must break even. That is a directive, and that's what we have committed ourselves to do. But we are taking it as an order from our employers. But we have challenges that are mitigating and making it difficult for us to achieve them. And we understand as entrepreneurs and as trend managers that there is nowhere in the world you will be without challenges. Leaders are supposed to understand their challenges and address them head on. That is why we came what we call 5-point transform as a management. We focus on 5 critical areas. Number 1 is the staffing. When we talk about the human resources, that's the most critical in every organization. The workforce now, we did what for staff head count and certificates of our workforce to know the exact number, the exact location, how they join the services, what is their qualification, what is their job description, what value are they adding to the corporation. It took us about 18 months to accomplish that. In the process, we discovered people that were illegally recruited, people that have no business in the utility for having no training at all, no entry, minimum entry qualification in whatever category. The co-workers of the utility are the operation staff, the water quality staff, and
Oh, we lost you again.
Audit of the water utility since 20. What of now? Are you getting me?
Yes, you're still coming in and out.
So let me summarize quickly. We developed 5-point transformation agenda as a management. 1 has to do with the quality and quantity of water produced. The 3rd transformation agenda is collection efficiency, cost recovery. The 3rd one is stakeholder engagement, because water sector, you cannot do it alone. You need to partner with a lot of stakeholders, internal and external. And without them, your stakeholders, without getting them right, you cannot succeed. The final transformation agenda is rule of law and due process, so that we don't break any law, we don't breach due process, and we end up in jail during or after our tenure. So this 5-point transformation agenda, it has become a roadmap for us to work on it incrementally. Each of the agendas have its own key performance indicators. Each transformation agenda has key performance indicator, and it has a dedicated officer that is overseeing it and reporting periodically. So in addition to some of the challenges we have is the institutional arrangement. In Kaduna, the small towns water supply and sanitation agency is still under the urban water supply. We have requested for them to be autonomous as it should be, but the government said it is cutting costs. We have to manage the small towns as well as the urban sanitation and urban water supply. So in Catchwork now, we have a department of small towns. They will have relative autonomy and have a standard operating procedure, but under our purview. While Ruwasa is fully autonomous with their own management and their own board. So why we bring this issue is that we have water schemes in rural areas where people cannot pay cost-reflective tariff. They are supposed to have subsidy, while we are supposed to do full cost recovery in the urban area. So that's one of our challenges. The second one is the aged infrastructure. The third one is federal agencies in Kaduna are not paying their water rates. So we have permission of the governor to start disconnecting them if they don't pay. We have Nigerian Defense Academy. We have one mechanized police command. We have a lot of federal parastatals. Very few of them are paying. And then we also have encroachment by NIWA, Nigerian Inland Waterways, that came to say we too, we must pay its revenue for abstracting raw water in the rivers that belong to Kaduna. And then we have resolved to go to Federal Court, Federal High Court to seek constitutional interpretation, because the NIWA is different from Federal Ministry of Water Resources. So there are a few challenges, but we have to work on them. We are not an island, but so far we are achieving reasonable success, because our cost recovery is one of the highest in the country. It's one of the highest in the country. As at now, this year alone, we have collected close to 800 million naira. Even though we are in the TSA, that collection can be verified by looking at the state consolidated revenue. So it's not something that anybody in Kaduna Water can cook. And our next priority is to attract high quality staff after disengaging about 300 that don't have the minimum qualification, and we assess them as untrainable, and we assess them as mere bench warmers that don't fit to the new scheme of things. So this is the little we have from Kaduna. If our colleagues have questions, we can answer.
Okay, thank you so much. Oga Dennis, can I get you to come in first before we continue?
Okay, hi. I think it's great to hear from all the GMs and the kind of improvements that are being made and the challenges. And it was also interesting to hear new kid on the block, if I can call him that. He's a big man, the GM of Kaduna State, because I believe he has only been there for the last 1 year or so. So it's great to hear from you. The rest are kind of familiar, Ekiti, Abia and Bauchi. I think that the problems are common, but I think there is certainly a way. And to me, we still need the government to make that bold step of implementing the laws. As I think it was Leo who mentioned that the laws are there. And I believe that most of the states have the progressive laws, which are saying that this we are going to corporatize, and so on, but actual implementation. And what does it mean? Instead of the corporation, like you mentioned, Vicky, that the corporation does, if you're truly a corporatized entity, you don't need to go to government to get permission to recruit staff. You don't need to go to government to get permission to buy or to procure anything. But you will not achieve that state unless government makes that decision to say you are now on your own. And one of the ways, I think there are basically two ways of the takeoff grant, which you mentioned. One is to get one grant, but the other one is to get what I call a sliding grant mechanism, where firstly, government needs to give that 100% authority and autonomy to manage the finances. So government gives, so that the first year, let's say, for example, the budget is 300 million. That includes salaries, chemicals, and so on. Government should give that money to the corporation to manage on its own with its finance department, but making sure that all of the loopholes are tied. Then second year, you reduce by 20%, and so on. So that by year 5, government does not contribute anything as far as operations and maintenance is concerned, whether it's salaries, whether it's chemicals, whether it's light in terms of electricity or fuel for generation, and so on. So anyway, this is just my my small contribution in terms of staffing as well as the issues of takeoff grant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. For those of us who know Dennis, Dennis has been at the forefront of the water sector reforms in Nigeria for a while. He knows us like the back of his hands by now. And so thank you. And Dennis is joining from Dennis, where are you joining from?
From the UK.
He's joining from the UK today. So thank you for being here.
No, I don't know.
I am calling Dr. Idris. Dr. Idris, we need to hear your voice. Come on. Can you hear me? No, he can't hear me yet. Okay. We have gone over time by, let me see, 18 minutes. Is it 18 minutes? Yes. But I think that we have more people who need to contribute. If you have something to contribute, please come in now so we can hear you.
So, hello, Vicky, can I come in? This is Jurbe.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I'm coming in for the second time. And I had all the GMs, and I want to just raise an observation on one issue that was mentioned by the GM of the Abia Water Corporation, that there are expectations for government to bring in the initial takeoff grant for the reform, which is good. But I think there's also a responsibility that the utility and the reform platform need to do. And that is to be able to come up with a basis for which those finances will be provided to those utilities. For example, there should be like a financial model where you have, you know, a period through which government will continue to invest, and then you monitor how the utility is also recovering its cost. Then at some point, they should be able to break even. And I think having to have that kind of clear arrangement makes it much more better for government to, both the government and the utility to be on the same page in terms of the initial takeoff grant. And then, like Dennis had said, in terms of ensuring that the reform fully takes up, we definitely need, you know, a governor who will be dedicated to such reforms. For example, I can tell you in Taraba State, we have a situation where the governor himself decided to take, you know, the sector practitioners to Kenya and spend time with them for 2 weeks. You know, he was part of the training, you know, there in Kenya. And when they came back, they started putting things in place because he was able to see very clearly that these reforms are feasible. So I think just to also borrow the word from our GM from Bauchi State, the MD from Bauchi State, it is important those concerned, particularly the CEOs of those utilities, to properly engage with their state governors and be able to tell them the benefits of what this reform stands to achieve. And I think if that is properly done, then we will continue to push the reforms until we get it right in this country. So I would like to stop over here and give chance to other participants. Thank you.
Who wants to come in next? We're going to drag it for another 8 minutes, and then we will be ready to stop. Okay, so if we don't have anybody coming in next, do we? Then maybe we don't go on for another 8 minutes. But the point that Juve made is a very legitimate point. And that information should be contained in your financial plan, which should be connected to your business plan and connected to your strategic plan. When you do that, then the government has a clear basis for why they're giving you the money and what you yourself should be contributing towards that transition period from when the government finally lets you go. I like the approach that Kaduna has. It's a very aggressive approach. Kaduna always has an aggressive approach to, to the reforms. You know, what has to happen there, though, is that they now must begin to define what corporatization is and begin to embrace it. They would be easy to corporatize since they are raising a lot of revenue as it is already. So, well, on that note, we are going to end here. And we've gone over by almost 30 minutes. Thank you so much for participating. I knew this was going to be rich because this is kind of like going into the trenches and hearing it directly from the people, the fighters in the trenches. If the reform is going to work, this is where it's going to work. It's in the hands of the GMs and the MDs and their people to make it work. Irrespective, I think it's Kaduna that said about there will be challenges and leadership must resolve challenges. This is the leadership that must resolve those challenges as they come up. And yeah, you know, we have to educate our governors. Like Juve's point about taking the MD all the way to where, I mean, the governor all the way to where they've seen it work before so that they don't think you're just telling them stuff. And then when they come back, they can become your partners in implementing whatever changes there are. There are many countries around Africa that have gone through corporatization, and I think Dennis can tell us that. You can actually take your governors to these places to see them. Maybe what we can do is I will talk to other people and make a list. We don't only always have to go to Zambia and all of that. So make a laundry list of countries where corporatization is working in Africa and share it. And then you can take a trip with your governor. I think that one of the points that Engineer Guitar made was about how before this governor came in, they had gotten together with him and brought him up to date on the reforms before he was even sworn in, and thereby protecting the reforms that way. When we had, I don't know which one we had now, one of these events when we had Engineer Benson, he had actually mentioned how you have to start a strategy of involving the political structure and all of that before they come in so that they understand, so that the water sector reforms can become part of their agenda for the incoming government in order for you to be able to carry on, because sustainability of the reforms is a real issue for us with changes in government. So we need to be implementing that side where we are educating both the current government and incoming governments to make sure that they are part, that they have the reforms as part of their agenda, their political agenda. Then the other thing which we need to bear in mind is that while we know that we are dealing with our government, some governors are stronger in maintaining a stance on the reforms, but it is important that we understand that the governors are politicians, and the politicians depend on promises to the electorate. What they would tend to do is, even when they know what they are supposed to do, facing their electorate, they might, well, it's not technically throwing you under the bus, but say what the electorate wants to hear. And oftentimes in Nigeria is the free things that they are going to be given, like water. We know the promises have always been giving free light and free water, which we know they can't because it costs too much money. And the people are willing to pay if they will get it. So your message may not rhyme with the governor when he's facing the electorate, but that doesn't mean he doesn't believe in what you're doing. So on that note, can we end here? We were supposed to, next week, we were supposed to kind of like help go through a framework for a 2022 plan that you can, or strategy that you can quickly implement once you hit the ground, once we hit January. But we have a major event for the water sector next week. So we are going to shift it to the next week over. And now we have a hand being raised before we shut down. Okay.
Yes. Hello, I'm Bashir Ibrahim from Kebbi State.
Uh-huh.
So though my observation already taken note that next week we have a council meeting. So we will not be able to. That's my observation.
Be the week after. We're going to shift it over.
All right,
so,
it's all right.
So that we can close out the year. All right, Engineer Leo. He put up his hand and disappeared. Okay. All right, so we can end here and we will meet again in about 2 weeks and hopefully bring your A game. We're going to share a model that you can quickly, it's not your strategic plan per se, but sort of like a plan for 2022 that you can use to achieve some big things. Can I say thank you from here and then we close out? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Madam Vicky. Thank you.
Hello?
See you next week.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My birthday is coming up on the 2nd of January.
January never near now. We never even do Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Dennis, thank you so much.
Dennis, you are invited from London. 2nd of January. Come and celebrate.
Okay.
Thank you.
You must be killing the cow. All right, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone, for attending.
Bye from Imo State.
Yes, so, all right. Bye, Imo.
Bye.
Yes, sir. James, we know hear your voice. Bye.